Chargers had 3 more points after that drive. And those 3 points came after a bad interception from Patrick Mahomes. So the defense responded. Yes, we can also talk about the Chargers missing their tackles, not having Bosa, not having Derwin James. They were banged up too, so let's not act like this was a Chiefs team beating a Chargers team at full strength, or a really good one at that. But it's a division rivalry. You play this team twice in a season, and I feel like Josh would have talked about this last year, and Dylan can jump in if he wants to, but we talk about those games against the Chargers, the Broncos, the Raiders. They're not always going to be blowouts because those guys know how to play you. They know how to defend you. They see Patrick Mahomes more than most teams. They see Travis Kelce. They've studied the playbook. It hasn't resulted in many wins. But that's why when this spread came out, and Pete Sweeney and I were talking on the Arrowhead Pride radio show, I thought the spread was a little bit too high. Even with all those uncertainties with the Chargers and their health, these games always find a way to be close. Whether it be the Chiefs playing around with their food or the Chargers giving the Chiefs their best shot. And that's another thing that we dove into last week. Every single week this team takes the field, they are getting the best shot from that opponent. That shot is not always going to be perfect play. It's not going to be the quarterback throwing for 405 touchdowns, but they put a lot into that game because they are playing the Chiefs, and beating the Chiefs in the regular season can go a long way in boosting yours. And this is not a Chiefs team that is dominating right now. They are not at full strength. Patrick Mahomes is not his usual self. And I'm not trying to make excuses, but to be 4-0, and you look at this injury report, you look at the numbers for Travis Kelce, I think if I didn't give you any context about who the Chiefs were playing and what was happening during that game, you would say they're likely 2-2. At least that would be my guess. If I had no knowledge of what was going on in that game and you just showed me stats after 4 games, I would say, okay, they're probably 500. Because hopefully the defense won them some games, and we sure as hell can say that after the Week 3 win against Atlanta and the Week 4 win today against the Los Angeles Chargers, 17-10, 17 unanswered points from the Chiefs. All right, we're going to go to the phone lines for the first time today. Let's hear from Travis. Travis, you're on the Red and Gold Postgame Show. What's going on, man?
Hey, guys. So today was pretty frustrating. I think we're all sick and tired of seeing them go out and score 20 points or, kick the ball around and, like you said, play with their food. But I do have some concerns with Mahomes. We're kind of seeing something we've never actually seen before. I mean, I think this is the worst he's played to start, in a 4-game stretch that I've ever seen. And I don't quite understand what it is. You hear people say that he's bailing on good pockets, which he did a lot today. But at the same time, my untrained eye sees the offensive line not doing a very good job either. So I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are. Is it him leaving good pockets? Is it the offensive line? Are they having breakdowns? In my mind, it can't. I guess it can be both, but one has to be cause and effect of the other, and they need to figure it out because just because they've won 3 Super Bowls doesn't mean that. Like last year, to me, last year was an anomaly. Last year was not the norm. If your idea is to play like you did last year to win a Super Bowl this year, I just think that's fool's gold. I don't think that's very smart, and I don't subscribe to that. A lot of people are confident they're just going to flip a switch and be fine because that's what they do. But we've never seen our franchise guy play this bad. So he's got to play better. And I just want to get your thoughts. Thanks, man.
Yeah, appreciate the call, Travis. I don't think that we can sit here after 4 games and say, well, no doubt about it, they're going to turn things around. They were able to do it last year. We can trust Kansas City once they get to the playoffs. I would push back on that because what they're dealing with this year in comparison to last year is they're not healthy. They've lost key guys to significant injuries. Rashee Rice, we'll find out soon enough. But I just don't think he's going to be available for the next few weeks. I don't want to speculate. We're going to wait till we hear from Andy Reid. Hollywood Brown's likely not going to be here in the regular season. The goal is the postseason. And at that point, how up to speed is he? You know, how is his conditioning? Is he in game shape? Can you trust him in a playoff game? That's going to be a coin toss in January. I think Hollywood Brown's a hell of a receiver, but I would feel far more comfortable if he had a couple of games under his belt in the regular season, and they may not get that. Isaiah Pacheco, when he got hurt, 6 to 8 weeks. And to your point, Travis, about Patrick Mahomes not looking like his usual self, that this is the worst that he's looked, I think it's a combination of not trusting the offensive line completely because left tackle's not solidified right now. If this is a week-to-week thing, I don't know how Patrick Mahomes can go out there every single week and have 100% faith that Wanye Morris or Kingsley Suamati are going to keep him protected. Jawan Taylor had a couple of penalties today. Trey Smith got called for holding, and there was some pressure coming up the middle where usually your interior is so rock solid. So it might be a little bit of lack of faith, but also I would say this, as for today, he lost his number one wide receiver in the first quarter. And you're dealing with Xavier Worthy being your number one guy who did have a big catch, a couple of big catches today, and he had to step up in a moment like that. And I still think that those two are trying to get on the same page. Honestly, after the interception, I was pretty pleased with what I saw from Patrick Mahomes. It's not what you always hope for, but we saw against Atlanta a few times, certainly against Cincinnati, the offense was just stagnant. It was ugly to watch them move the football. And they turned it over twice today. Their first 2 drives, they turned it over. And then Kareem Hunt got going. We'll definitely talk about him today. But having that running back, it allows Patrick Mahomes to be a better version of himself. And that goes with every single quarterback in the NFL. If you've got a running game to worry about, well, it takes pressure off your quarterback. And right now, I think it's an offense that is trying to work through a lot of its issues. They're not healthy. But last point I'll say in this, Travis, I don't think that I'm going to sit here, and I don't think it would be fair to listeners out there to say, well, because of last year, they're going to be fine. I think you can have confidence in trusting Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid to have things figured out and for Travis Kelce to get better as the season goes on. Today was, in my opinion, the best game he's had. But there's also that worry of, are they ever going to be healthy? Right? Because then it becomes a matter of how many significant injuries can you basically overcome, survive? I mean, yes, last year the Chiefs had a bad and lackluster receiving core. You look at the depth chart going into Monday Night Football against the New Orleans Saints next week. It is completely different than what we hoped it would be back in August, where you have Rice, you have Hollywood Brown, you can slowly bring along Worthy. You know, Watson's down the list a little bit. Sky Moore's way down the list. And now everybody gets bumped up once again. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to pump the brakes on speculating what Rice's outlook's going to be. We'll just hear from Andy Reid himself, but that's going to be coming up a little bit later on in the show. Let's go back to the phone lines, and we're going to hear from Kyle. Kyle, what's on your mind, man?
Hey, I just got 3 points I want to make. Again, thank you for taking my phone call.
Of course.
The first point I want to make is Travis Kelce had a heck of a game, and I think now we can put all the, things of what's wrong with Travis Kelce. I don't think there was nothing really wrong with him. I think it's because teams had him double covered, and that gave, Rashee Rice and other wide receivers, wide open. So him just being out there on the field in his presence, it's just it's what you need out there. And he had 8 catches for 90 yards today. So I think we could put the silent there's nothing wrong with Travis Kelce, so there's point 1 there. He had a heck of a game today. And he had a few good he had a few good blocks too, by the way, today. key blocks, I think that helped Kareem Hunt get like 10 yards or something. But anyway, so that's point one. Point two, I'm concerned about the offensive line a little bit. Jawan Taylor and his penalties, that's a concern for me. It was a concern for me last year. Do we have anybody for his spot, or is there anybody else that we can take his spot? Because Jawan Taylor and his penalties, I'm afraid that's going to cost us down the road here. Maybe hopefully I'm wrong, but I do not like Jawan Taylor being on the field. It's just too nerve-wracking for me. So that's point number two. And point number three, I thought the defense played outstanding today. They gave up a touchdown drive, but then they settled down, and again, the defensive line got better. Felix Azamba got in there. Karlaftis was getting in there. Obviously, Chris Jones. Secondary played good. So hats off to the defense again today for the fantastic job, and I think they're starting to settle in and start becoming the defense they were last year. So those are the 3 points I want to make. I'll listen off the air, and thank you for taking my call.
Hey, thanks for the call, Kyle. And I do think the offensive line is a little bit problematic, more so at the tackle positions. I'm not too worried about how Creed Humphrey looks or how Joe Tooney looks or how Trey Smith looks, because I think for the most part they've been pretty good this year. Jawan Taylor, at least today, struggled again with penalties. Wanya Morris, I don't know if I can sit here and say that he's the answer at left tackle, but at the same time, I don't think I can sit here and say that Kingsley Suamataia is absolutely the answer right now at left tackle. He's young. He's a little bit inexperienced in terms of NFL experience. He's raw, but I do think the potential's there. What it's going to come down to is, are the Chiefs willing to gamble on that? And maybe Kingsley Suamataia going up and having another Trey Hendrickson-like performance where he's giving up all those pressures and constantly having Patrick Mahomes run around? Or do they just stick with Wanya Morris and say, it can't be as bad as that? We know what Wanya Morris can give us. He is young too, but he's a little bit more seasoned than Kingsley is. And as for Jawan Taylor at right tackle, you can't bench him because there really isn't anybody else you can go to, in my opinion. I don't think you want to have to bench both of your tackles this early on in the year. You might have to roll the dice and hope they just get better. Now, I do have confidence that Jawan Taylor can get better, maybe not to the level of a top 5 right tackle in this league. I think we're all aware of that at this point. But if you can cut down the penalties a little bit, I think Jawan Taylor can do his job enough to not really be noticed in a game. And that's what you want as a tackle. You don't want to be noticed. You don't want to have to constantly be put on the replay cameras of getting blown by or getting dominated or being called for a penalty. You want to be the guy that nobody's talking about until you have a pancake block or you have a key moment late in the game on a screenplay. That's when you want to be put on camera. Other than that, you want to be a non-factor, basically, to the cameras. You're just doing your job. You're just dominating, and that's been an issue so far. A couple of drives early on, Patrick Mahomes couldn't even get to his second read. And so that's why I think there's a couple of those balls that are forced where they're not supposed to be. You get those weird interceptions of, what is he looking at? Why is he trying to throw it there? And it's because I don't think there is 100% trust at the tackle position. I think he would have faith in his interior line because those have been his 3 guys for the last 3 to 4 years. But it's been a little bit different at left tackle and right tackle. It's been a couple different guys, whether it be to those other guys walking or those guys getting injured or those guys getting benched. The tackle positions have been a little bit different for Patrick Mahomes in his career compared to the guard position and the center position. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. We'll hear from Gary. Gary, what's on your mind, man?
Oh, a few things. Just watching that, I think we're starting to see, reminds me of Alex Smith 2.0 is what we're watching right now, a quarterback. A guy that gets the yips. He checks down now. He doesn't want to look downfield. You can blame the offensive line all you want, but the grades for the offensive line the last 2 weeks have not been that bad. So you can't put it all on that offensive line. At some point, you got to put it on him. On the interception where he took out Rashee Rice, he did 2 things in one play that hurt his football team. And I just don't understand what's going on with the kid. I mean, you're a year and a quarter of the season in, and he's played like this. Yes, he had the great run towards the Super Bowl last year, but you've got to start thinking it's not mechanical, it's mental, because he needs to be taking steps forward as a player approaching 30 years old. He should be getting better, not regressing. Are we starting to see the Russell Wilson effect where he regressed and now look at him? Because the other teams, the defenses are playing chess and the Chiefs offense is playing checkers. Is it a Matt Nagy thing? Because he killed an offense in Chicago in 3 years. So you got to start to wonder if it's that. Defensively, their defense has been, for the situations that defense has been put into, because the offense is turnover prone, you've got to give the defense a lot of props. But I'm not blaming the offensive line today. I'm blaming the quarterback and the play calling and the head coach, because we've got to start seeing improvement out of this offense, and it's going to start with number 15. Is he going to take a step up, become the leader of this football team, or is he going to turn into Russell Wilson? Because that's what I think we're starting to see. He's not taking a step forward. He's stuck. I'll hang up and listen. Great show.
I appreciate the phone call, Gary. I don't know if I'm there yet, that there's any regression for Patrick Mahomes. I think in this case, the checkdowns I don't really have an issue with, because I remember a time, man, I want to say it was 2021. It was a slow start for Kansas City, and the turnovers were an issue. Dylan, do you remember that start I'm talking about? There was a loss to Tennessee. There was a loss to Buffalo, loss to Baltimore. Turnovers were an issue. And I remember the conversations back then were, even though Patrick Mahomes has Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins, I wish at times he would just take the underneath routes, because he doesn't need to force the issue there. He can take the check down there, pick up 5, 6, 7 yards, and live for another day. But what we've seen in these 4 games is, I think, almost a little bit of eagerness of not being able to do that last year, right? Last year, there was no way in hell he could throw a ball like he did to Xavier Worthy on the 50-plus yard touchdown. Nobody could get open or separation that deep. So either at this point in time, he's trying to force the issue of, man, I haven't gotten to throw the ball down the field that much, and this is my chance to gamble a little bit. I mean, he's earned the right to be confident in being able to make some of those throws, and we've seen him make some of those throws. But to me, I think when you get to October and November, those chances won't be taken. And in fact, after that interception, there were multiple opportunities in which Patrick Mahomes could have forced the issue, and he didn't. He decided to tuck it and run or get the check down. And if the check down on 3rd and 7 picks up 3, all right. It's better than turning it over on 3rd and 7 and putting the defense, as you brought up, Gary, in a bad position. Now, this defense has played lights out when being put in a bad situation. And to me, we can't gloss over that, right? We can look at this defense and say they're doing their job. They are better than an undefeated football team, as much as you can really say that. They are a huge reason why this team is still unblemished on their record. To survive the injuries the Chiefs offense has endured and their quarterback not playing good football right now, or at least not his level of football, you can still put a smile on your face tomorrow morning and go, 4-0 is 4-0. And the Chiefs have given us reason to believe they can get things figured out. And one of our previous callers, it was, we can't just push the button and throw away the panic button and go, well, we're going to be fine. I'll push this button and feel completely confident this Chiefs team will be playing their best football in January. No doubt in my mind about it. They've given us reason to believe that can happen because they've done it almost every single year in the Patrick Mahomes era. They have played their best football at the end of the year. Really, with the exception of losing to the Bengals in the AFC title game. But before that, in the divisional round, they gave us the football game of all time, of eternity, and putting up 40-plus points and forcing overtime with 13 seconds. So to me, I think they were playing great football at the time. They just lost to a team that was playing better football. Few times, I think, in the Patrick Mahomes era, we have looked at them at some state and said they can't overcome that. Right? Even last year, we all remember where we were on Christmas Day after the loss to Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders, who didn't complete a pass in the second half. We all remember how we felt. There is zero chance that they overcome that. They're not a good football team. They're not a Super Bowl team, and lo and behold, they figured it out. I'm not saying it's going to happen the exact same way at the end of this year, because what is different, as I pointed out, they're not healthy. And it doesn't look like with a handful of these guys, they're going to be back anytime soon. But we'll probably have a full injury report breakdown coming up a little bit later on in the show. Look, real quickly, want to hear from Patrick Mahomes in his post-game interview on the sideline with Tracy Wolfson.
Patrick, this has kind of been the season so far. It hasn't been pretty, but you find a way to win. Can you pinpoint how you keep pulling these games out?
Yeah, I think guys just believe. Obviously, we're starting games not the way we want to offensively. But at the end of the day, you just got to keep pushing. We're going to try to keep getting better and better, but as long as we keep getting wins, you can't really complain.
What has been the struggle for you so far?
Yeah, I think defenses are just playing well. We're hitting some deep shots, but we're turning the ball over too much. I'm turning the ball over too much, and it's killing drives. So you got to clean it up. And I know it sounds like we say that every week, but we'll keep working at it, and hopefully as the season goes on, we get better at it.
We saw Rashee Rice go down with that injury. I know that was hard to watch. Other guys, though, stepping up, and specifically we saw vintage Travis Kelce. Did you know that was coming?
Yeah, I know he always has it, and he just, whenever we need it, man, he comes out and makes plays. And I was happy for him. Guys made plays today. We'll see what happens with Rashee. Hopefully we can get him back at some point this season. But if not, other guys got to step up, and that's what football is about. And I think we got a lot of good guys out there that can go out there and make plays.
Appreciate the time. Enjoy the win.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that was Patrick Mahomes after the game with Tracy Wolfson of CBS with the Chiefs' 17-10 victory over the Los Angeles Chargers, moving to 4-0 for the first time since 2020. Before we go to break, want to hear from Sean in Jersey. Sean, you're on the Red and Gold Postgame Show, my man.
Hey, what's going on? Good win for the Chiefs today. This is a defining win for me. I love this win because the team just showed how structured they are. They lost Rashee Rice went out, and the team still found a way to win. Defense played great. Offense did their thing. And to me, it was a good win. And we look at the Patriots years ago when they were on their dynasty run. Not every game was pretty. They had 10-3 wins. 10-3, they beat teams. 17-10, they beat teams. Kansas City is a great team. It's a great team. And today, they proved that they are a good team. Without, Rashee Rice, and they still found ways to win it. And I'm watching the game, and I'm like, the Chargers keep giving them room to go ahead and win this game. The Chargers didn't seal the deal. They didn't seal the deal. But it's a great team, and this win I actually is probably one of my favorite wins. I like this win today, and the Chiefs are going to be good moving forward. They're going to be good moving forward. You look who they played. They've had a tough schedule from kickoff day to now, and they're going to keep going, keep pushing, and we'll be back in the playoffs, and we're going to hopefully win it again.
All right. Appreciate the positivity there from Sean. And, there are going to be some people today that go, I love gritty wins like that. When you are down and out, it appears early on in the game, you have to overcome some adversity, injuries, turnovers, and you beat a division rival. If you want to call the Chargers a division rival, I won't fight you on that. And you're 4-0. As I've said almost every single postgame show, you're just stacking wins. And the more you do that early on in the season, the less pressure you have in November and December when teams are chasing you. You get out to a 4-0 start. Look at Baltimore right now. Only got one win. Look at Cincinnati. Only got one win. It's Carolina. Buffalo's the closest team to you, and you've got success against them in the postseason. So we'll see how that all plays out, and more importantly, we'll see how all these injuries play out, because we are going to be talking about Rashee Rice and his knee injury a little bit later on in the show. But right now, let's take a quick break. You're listening to the Red and Gold Postgame Show on Sports Radio 810 WHB. You are tuned in to the Red and Gold Postgame Show, brought to you by Boda Box Wine. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Boda Box, the ultimate tailgate wine. Boda Box, this is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Boda Box Vineyards, Manteca, California. As good as the win felt today, if you are just an optimist and you like seeing wins in football and don't really care how they happen, there was a lot of negatives that we do have to talk about, and mainly involving injuries, and injuries to, once again, a significant player. This time it was Rashee Rice, and it happened on a interception thrown by Patrick Mahomes, and it was Rice, if I'm not mistaken, that had punched the ball out, but injured his knee in the process. And I think for a lot of people in Kansas City, the initial thought is maybe a stinger, maybe a bone bruise. I mean, it looked in a lot of discomfort on the ground, on the turf, but was able to gingerly get off the field with the help of some trainers. But then when he got to the sideline, things started to take a turn a little bit. It went from he's barely moving around a little bit, he's on the bench, to all of a sudden he's on the back of the cart, and he's got the towel on his head, and he's laying flat on his back. And we find out rather quickly he's not coming back in the game. And I think once he left on the cart, nobody thought that he was questionable or might return. I think everybody went, let's hold our breath, and just assume that all things came back good from the locker room. And then we get to halftime, and Andy Reid gets asked, I believe from Tracy Wolfson, about the status of Rashee Rice. And, basically to sum it up, he said it's not good. Right? And that's the second time now in back-to-back weeks, really, or 3 weeks. So not back-to-back technically, that Andy Reid has spoken on the injury to a player. Remember, it was Pacheco first, and we're getting word from the locker room that he had a towel on his head. He was emotional in the locker room, and Andy Reid had to go up there and pat him on the back and tell him something privately. But it was not a good feel of, he's going to be out just a few days. We'll get him back at practice a little bit later on, and he should be a game-time decision. No, in a lot of these injuries, it's been, I don't think it's going to be too good. Even with Hollywood Brown, when Andy Reid was asked about a timetable, when he could return, it was, probably more so months, and a couple of months than weeks. And when that happened, we all went, he may not play in the regular season. And that's kind of the way things are trending. And with Rashee Rice, when that's the initial response, that's the first thing we get, I don't feel good about it. And we had Matt Derrick on, and we'll have Matt Derrick on a little bit later on in the show, but when we talked about the Pacheco injury, I said, we don't want to speculate. There's nothing that we can do, and you, the listener, be able to take it with any sort of truth to it. If I'm just sitting up here and going, well, it could be 3 to 4 games or 5 to 6 games, or how do the Chiefs go on without Rashee Rice if he's out 9 weeks? Because I don't know how long he's going to be out. We'll hear from Andy Reid later on in this show. We'll get reports coming through on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, and I'll do my best to keep everybody posted on that. But the general feel right now is that it's not going to be good news. And I'm constantly refreshing and trying to see what's going on. This one, and I want to make sure I get this right, so Dylan, I might need you to double-check this for me. This, I want to say it's from James Palmer, but I could be wrong on that. Maybe go to James Palmer's Twitter account right now and tell me if what was just tweeted out a little bit ago is true or not. I don't want to be caught in the wrong bait here, because you got to look at the follower count, and then you also got to look at if that person's real and it's not a bot or anything like that. But trying to get the news on Rashee Rice and looking for pretty much any big-name NFL reporter to get the news of what is being heard involving Rashee Rice and his knee. So if you heard anything or you reading anything right now, Dylan, that is truth, and it's not going to be some bot that's spewing fiction out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reading right now James Palmer of Underdog Sports. It looks like Underdog Fantasy NFL Insider for Bleacher Report as well now. He is tweeting that it is feared Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice has potentially suffered a season-ending ACL tear per source. An MRI tomorrow will provide more information, but the Chiefs are preparing for the worst.
Yep, and I just stumbled across this with Adam Schefter. Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice is feared to have suffered a torn ACL during Sunday's game versus the Chargers. There will be additional testing to confirm the initial diagnosis. So again, before I jumped the gun there, I wanted to make sure that wasn't a fake account or anything like that, but I am looking at Adam Schefter's account right now, the 11.2 million followers. Rashee Rice appears to have lost his 2024 regular season to an ACL injury. So now we don't have to speculate. Now we can pretty much go ahead and start talking about what's next. We'll get Matt Derrick's thoughts a little bit later on in the show, but brutal news coming out of L.A. as Rashee Rice is feared to have suffered a torn ACL, and that would be yet another player, a significant impact player for the Chiefs, that will not be returning. Although with Hollywood Brown and Isaiah Pacheco, you expect to get them back at some point this season, this would effectively end the year for the Chiefs' number one wide receiver. So now this victory completely gets washed over. Let's all be honest here. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I was feeling good at the beginning of this show. We're talking about a 4-0 football team, a defense that played lights out after an opening drive, Kareem Hunt looking fantastic in his first game back in a Chiefs uniform, and this is going to be what we take away. Was that a guy who had seemingly had one of the biggest jumps from a wide receiver, at least, from year to year, from rookie season to sophomore season, than anybody else in the NFL? Now you're going to have to maneuver the rest of the season, likely. Again, there's more reports, more testing to be done tomorrow. But when you hear that from Adam Schefter, when you hear that from James Palmer, it's not good news. Of course it's not good news. And it overshadows the game today. And I won't spend the entire show going over this doom and gloom scenario. But this is pretty much as bad as it can get. In a span of 3 weeks, you have lost your number one wide receiver. You have lost your number 2 wide receiver. You have lost your running back. You do not really know who your starting left tackle is. You are still waiting for Charles Omenihu to come back. I mean, what more do I need to go over? Those are significant injuries that, yes, will impact this team the rest of the year. It isn't about, well, we got to weather the storm with Rashee Rice out. If this comes back to be the final report, the tweet, anything, the report, the news headline that comes out tomorrow, once that is final, it's not about we're weathering the storm. You have to figure out how to completely, in my opinion, alter this offense to put up a hell of a lot of points on teams that are going to be able to put up a lot of points in January and February. Xavier Worthy went from the fairy tale type story of the 40-yard dash, shattering the record, and in a few months just became the number one wide receiver for a back-to-back Super Bowl winning team. And I think everybody would say, as great of an opportunity as that is for him, that's not how you wanted things to go. You wanted him to be the number 3 all year long and slowly work into this offense. But now, because of these circumstances, he has to be a number 1 wide receiver. And what's even more of a problem is whereas Travis Kelce in the first 3 weeks, and today he was fantastic. He was typical Travis Kelce. And I don't think it was too much of a surprise that when Rashee Rice went down and he went back to being the number 1 pass-catching option, he turned into Travis Kelce again. As if there was any doubt going into today's game that he was not going to be able to perform well. He always plays well against the Chargers, and Derwin James wasn't out there to be the guy that could defend him one-on-one. But now Travis Kelce, where I think for a lot of Chiefs fans, including myself, could say, well, let's just get him to the postseason healthy. I mean, he can go out there every once in a while, have a big-time game. But as we saw against Baltimore, as we saw against Cincinnati, as we saw against Atlanta, he didn't need to have a big-time performance for the Chiefs to win. Why? Because Rashee Rice did. And now Rashee Rice won't be there to help if all these reports come back to be true. And I've got no reason to doubt Adam Schefter. Not right now, at least. But it overshadows everything. It's a dark cloud now. It's hard to be pessimistic and negative about an undefeated football team, and it's hard to be pessimistic and negative when you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. But if you didn't think this offense was already struggling, it has now been a complete game changer. In my opinion, and I do have faith that Andy Reid and Matt Nagy can do this, you have to alter your offense. You don't get Pacheco back for still another 5 to 6 weeks, if you're lucky, in my opinion. So now, your running back number one is Kareem Hunt, in my opinion. Your wide receiver number one is Xavier Worthy. If you thought last year was the toughest test of Patrick Mahomes' career in dealing with a lackluster receiver room, this takes the cake. This absolutely takes the cake. Because there are more problems and injuries that he didn't have to endure early on last year. Early on last year was about getting back up to speed, getting in sync. Chris Jones sat out game one. Travis Kelce wasn't healthy for game one. But you had guys you could rely on a little bit. Having Isaiah Pacheco was one of them. And look, I loved what Kareem Hunt did today, and I can't wait to see what another week of practice can do for him going into Monday Night Football against the Saints. But I don't think you can sit here and say, well, they're going to have it figured out. There are few teams, and I mean few, and honestly, off the top of my head, I don't know ever that have lost their number one wide receiver, number two wide receiver, and running back in a span of 3 weeks. Again, if somebody wants to call in and you have a specific memory, you can do so at 913-381-0810. But you talk about a bad couple of weeks, even when you're winning. I mean, you talk about the injury bug. It's one thing to have a guy have a back problem, a hamstring problem, a groin problem. We're talking season-ending injuries to the top guys in your offense. So, yes, I will try to navigate the rest of this show with a little bit more positivity of still discussing and bringing up the win. But it's also going to be very difficult to do so when you just get the news of Rashee Rice. An ACL injury, it's feared to believe. Adam Schefter put it out there, James Palmer. It's not good news right now. All right, before we hit a break, I do want to get to a couple of phone calls. We'll start with Chad. Chad, what's on your mind?
Hey, yes. There's nothing wrong with number 15, and there's nothing wrong with number 87. The problem has been for the last 7 years offensively the tackle position, and it's still a problem. That's what's on my mind. I got the news about Rashee Rice, but don't get all doom and gloom, everybody, because Rashee Rice wasn't on this roster in 2022. I believe it was Juju Smith-Schuster who was doing Rice's role right now. So we're going to be fine. Yes, these injuries suck. I don't like it, but it happens. If any franchise is going to get through this, it's going to be one that has Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, and Andy Reid. They proved it last year. They're probably going to prove it again this year. I mean, that's just how I see it. Maybe I'm naive and maybe I'm delusional, but that's just how I see it. And today's game was an awesome game. You want to know why? Because the San Diego Chargers, NFL's been looking for Mahomes' equal for the last 7 years. Patrick Mahomes' equal has always been in L.A. for the last 7 years. He just had an idiot for a coach. Now he has Jim Harbaugh. And I'm telling you, from here on out, we will see the L.A. Chargers 3 times a year, and it will decide who represents the AFC champion in the Super Bowl from here on out. That's my opinion. It's Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Justin Herbert. Those are your quarterbacks. Everybody else is just there. That's how it's been for the last 7 years. It's just Herbert's never had a coach. That's how I see it. Today was a huge win, and I like you guys at 8-10, and just it's September, guys. It's September. Take a breath, relax. They'll figure it out. Thank you.
I appreciate the phone call, Chad. And I do think that there are some positives we can still take away from today, and honestly about this offense as well, because as we know for today, they had to play the majority of it without Rashee Rice. I mean, Xavier Worthy was the number 1 wide receiver, I think, on the 3rd drive of the game, and the offense was still able to move the football. We also have to factor in, though, Chargers defense was very banged up. And it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a struggle. And quite honestly, I don't know how they're going to get it done, but I think somebody's going to have to come in to help out with the wide receiver room. And to the point about Juju, yes, Rashee Rice wasn't there in 2022 when they beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl, but Juju was also Juju 2 years ago. This is a different Juju Smith-Schuster. This is a different team. This is a different offense. And now you're going to have to survive the rest of the year with somebody you were kind of banking on every single game to be your number 1 threat, at least if Travis Kelce wasn't providing much, which in the first 3 games he wasn't. And today he finally was able to go out there and put up Travis Kelce numbers, but that's because Rashee Rice went down pretty early on in the game. All right, before we hit a break, want to hear from Dan and KCK. Dan, what's going on, man?
Win by the Chiefs. Hey, Jack, how you doing? It was a great win by the Chiefs. Yeah, the big completion to Worthy. And Kareem Hunt really ran the ball real good, didn't miss a beat. And, yeah, it sucks, what Adam Schefter said, that's going to be a season ending for Rashee Rice. But, hey, if anybody could pull it off is Andy, Patrick, and, and then Kelce, so it's going to be all okay, just everybody's got to pick up their games a little bit better. And Patrick's going to be playing much better. Let's take care of things. Take care, Jack.
Hey, appreciate the phone call, Dan. Look, I do think we can have a change of heart a little bit in knowing that if you want to be optimistic, if you want to be hopeful, because I'm also not going to sit in front of this microphone and tell you how bad it's going to be, because I don't believe it's going to be terrible. I don't believe it's going to be awful. This is still a team with the best quarterback in football and the best coach in football right now, and they have endured bad injuries and bad situations before and have been able to overcome it. But I think we also can have that dose of reality of you do have to view this team a little bit differently now. You have to view this offense a little bit differently now. They can still get on the same page. And they can utilize Kareem Hunt in the next 5, 6, 7 weeks as a number 1 running back, and maybe it works out. Maybe Worthy does explode as a number 1 wide receiver in the way Rashee Rice did last year. But all that now is being put on your shoulders 4 games into the season. And there's nowhere to hide. A lot of these guys aren't going to be coming back anytime soon. We'll take a quick break. You are listening to the Red and Gold Postgame Show, brought to you by Boda Box Wine. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Boda Box, the ultimate tailgate wine. Boda Box is the premium boxed wine that wins with wine critics. Boda Box, this is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Boda Box Vineyards, Manteca, California. When we come back, we're going to hear from Xavier Worthy, who had his 3rd career touchdown for the Kansas City Chiefs. That's coming up on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Brought to you by Andy's Frozen Custard. And fitting that it was the big completion from Patrick Mahomes to Travis Kelce, because today you can enjoy a treat and give to a great cause. That's right, the 87 Concrete, crafted by Travis Kelce himself, consists of vanilla frozen custard, Oreo, cookie dough, and cream caramel. A portion of the proceeds go to support Travis Kelce's 87 and Running Foundation. Top your day with a smile at Andy's. And you were tuned in to the Red and Gold Postgame Show, brought to you by Boda Box Wine. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Boda Box, the ultimate tailgate wine. Boda Box is the premium boxed wine that wins with wine critics. Boda Box, this is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Boda Box Vineyards, Manteca, California. Do want to get to our first piece of audio tonight. We are going to hear from one of the stars, and for the second time in 4 games, he was the star for the Chiefs offensively, and at least having 1 touchdown in that game. The last time we did this for him was Game 1, his debut, and that's Xavier Worthy, who had 2 touchdowns against the Ravens in the NFL season opener. And today, he had the long 50-plus yard touchdown reception from Patrick Mahomes. So here is what Worthy had to say after the game.
Hi, guys. Xavier, can you just take us through the touchdown, and did you know that was going to be there starting on that play?
We talked about it on the sideline. I told Pat, probably around the first quarter, if you get this play call, I'm a stutter a little bit at the top of the route, and it worked. It worked out just like that, which is crazy.
Was the stutter the key? It looked like it.
I feel like I would have had it if I would have read straight, but the stutter just added a little bit of sauce to it.
What did you see there on the final first down there to help you guys kind of ice the game?
When they did the counter motion, we seen it was man coverage, so Pat checked it, and it was the man look, caught it, got the first down, get down.
This is your first game here in SoFi. What was your thoughts, just the experience here being visiting in LA?
Man, I'm actually from California, so being from California, coming back to California, first game in California, it's fun. I haven't been in California since high school, so that's amazing.
Was the touchdown more special for you being from California?
Yeah, it was a little bit more special just being from California. I was not from LA, but I'm from California, so just having that feeling and having a big play in my own state is huge.
How do you assess where the offense is now as opposed to the beginning of the season and where you're progressing?
I'm just going to keep growing. A rookie, learning my role, learning where I fit in the scheme. So just going to keep growing in this offense.
What about overall, though, the offense itself and where you are now? I know you'd like to score a few more points and keep it cleaner too, right?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, it just takes a lot of work. We have a lot of good group of guys on our team. We got Rasheed, we got Juju, we got guys like Jay Watt, Trav. Even now we got Kareem. So just having that explosion on the offense, it's a lot of mouths to feed. So just making the plays when it's my turn is the key.
And how's the receiver room with seeing Rasheed going down? How are you guys able to bounce back and get things going?
Yeah, we really don't know what's going on with him, but in our receiver room, it's next man up. Praying for our brother, but I feel like we have a lot of guys that's able to make plays in key moments as well.
Was there a sense of shock a little bit with that? It seemed pretty evident that it was a bad injury, and did it affect you guys momentarily, or?
No, we didn't really know what was going on. With Rasheed going out, he was kind of like a big part. He had a lot of personnel, so it was a lot of personnel switch. It was a lot of stuff to just kind of figure out.
And today, did you feel that it looked like you expanded your role a little bit today? Maybe you've been running some of the same plays, but the ball hasn't found you. But did you feel like that? You were in different parts of the field in different ways?
Yeah, I feel like each and every week I'm getting a bigger role and like more stuff to do on my plate.
Do you expect your role to increase if Rasheed misses any amount of games?
Man, but expectations by my role, I'll just do whatever the coaches say.
You're 4 weeks into your career playing with Patrick Mahomes. What has that been like for you?
Playing with a guy like Pat, man, it's different. He knows exactly what's going to come. He knows exactly what to do when the time comes. He's never rattled. So having a quarterback like that, arguably one of the greatest of all time, is different. It's crazy.
What are your thoughts on how Kareem played today?
He ran hard. Man, with Pacheco being out and him running the ball how he did, it's going to be big games coming up for him.
Are you old enough to remember when he was with the Chiefs the last time around?
Nope.
Okay, thanks, Xavier.
Right on.
And that was Xavier Worthy, and it has been our locker room report brought to you by Twin Peaks.
The Chiefs Locker Room Report is brought to you by Twin Peaks. No one does football like Twin Peaks. Whatever your preference, they have everything from tequila cocktails and an extensive bourbon category to top shelf spirits and cocktails served over ice balls. Local craft beers and handcrafted whiskey cocktails round out an adventurous drink menu, second to none. And don't forget about their 29-degree man-sized drafts at Twin Peaks.
I might call a little BS there from Xavier Worthy saying he wasn't old enough to remember Kareem Hunt's time in Kansas City. Now, was he watching the Chiefs back then? Probably not. I mean, he was busy focusing on his own career. But what would that have made him? That's 7 years ago. Actually, 6 years ago. So 6 years ago, he was 15. He was in high school. He had to have remembered at least a little bit of Kareem Hunt's time, unless he just didn't watch NFL football back then. So I can't fight him on that. I'm mainly joking around a little bit with Xavier Worthy, who was great today in the Chiefs' 17-10 win over the L.A. Chargers, and certainly is going to have an increased role moving forward with the news that it is feared that Rashee Rice has a torn ACL and will miss the remaining 2024 season. There will be more tests done tomorrow, so we'll have the official word then, but from all the big-name NFL reporters like Adam Schefter and James Palmer, that is what it is feared to be, is a torn ACL, which would then thrust Xavier Worthy into the number one wide receiver spot. All right, for the final time in today's show, we want to go to the phone lines. We'll hear from Andrew first. Andrew, you're on the Red and Gold Postgame Show, my man.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Hey, I want to go back to about 30 minutes ago. You had a caller on. I think his name was Gary. Listen, man, the second we start saying that Pat Mahomes is regressing and it's Russell Wilson, we're starting to lose our minds a little bit. I mean, this guy is a three-time Super Bowl champion, multiple MVP. I mean, he's the best on the planet. So let's all calm down a little bit. And then, I mean, the Rashee Rice thing, obviously it's going to hurt us a little bit, right? But I trust, the best coach who's ever done it. And yes, I said what I said. I mean, you can't tell me that there hasn't been something in the back of their minds that, going back to the summer, that losing Rice, due to like a league suspension wasn't a possibility. We're going to figure it out. All right, and all the crap that's happened to us so far this season, we're still 4-0. Our defense is more than solid. We're okay. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
I appreciate the phone call, Andrew. And, we've had a couple of callers so far bring up, their optimism of we're going to get things figured out. And like I said, too, if there's any team, any coach, any quarterback, any tight end, any GM to figure things out with something like this, it would be the Kansas City Chiefs. You don't win back-to-back Super Bowls and have no adversity to deal with. The Chiefs have dealt with adversity before, losing guys for an extended period of time. Is this the worst we've ever seen? Maybe. Maybe.
We lost to Aiden O'Connell on Christmas when did he complete a pass or what was it?
Not in the second half.
Second half, that's right.
So
I think everyone, especially Gary, we know this might be a little therapy area for Gary sometimes after games, So I agree with the caller there.
It's Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion. He's maybe not working through things right now, but more so dealing with having a different set of weapons every single week. Let's be honest. It's been a different group for 4 straight weeks. It's not to excuse the play that he's had.
It's been a different group for both playoff runs.
Absolutely.
So
it's a group that right now is going to be rolling into Week 5 against the New Orleans Saints on Monday Night Football with a rookie as their number 1 wide receiver. Justin Watson is their number 2. Juju is the 3. Probably a bigger utilization for Noah Gray now. I have a 2 tight end look. I think we can nitpick and certainly point out some flaws with this offense. What I do hate, Dylan, is that the injury news for Rashee Rice overshadows everything. And I haven't had the opportunity yet, which we absolutely will spend enough time on, is Kareem Hunt and what he looked like.
Yes.
What is...
Old, he looked like
the old Kareem Hunt.
27.
And that was one of my concerns with people maybe putting too much expectation on Kareem Hunt coming back and looking like what he did today, because let's all remember, he wasn't on an NFL roster like a month ago. And there's always a reason for that. When Samaje Perine, who did have a touchdown today, he wasn't on an NFL roster because nobody wanted to give him a deal. And for Kareem Hunt, I don't think it was character issue-wise. I think it was just that Everybody else was content with their running back room. But today had nearly 100 scrimmage yards. He ran the ball effectively. He had a burst that I certainly don't remember seeing in Cleveland, and I hadn't really seen since he was in Kansas City in the first go-around. But Kareem Hunt, I think, would have been offensively the story of this game. Not the star, the story. And there's a lot of different guys we could give praise to. Chris Jones, as I think Ryan Clark brought up on Twitter, was that he's Godzilla. He just destroys buildings. He made a mockery of the Chargers' offensive line today. But he does that to every single offensive line he faces and in key moments. You would think on third downs, hey, maybe we should double-team Chris Jones. It doesn't matter. And if you do stop him, somebody else gets free on the edge and brings down your quarterback. But you could give the ball of the game to Chris Jones. You could give it to Matt Araiza, who, by the way, has been phenomenal and flipping field position all the time. The punt god, as they call him. I'd give the game ball to Matt Araiza. Maybe Dave Tobe did, the special teams game ball. But Kareem Hunt, to me, I think gave you a little bit of hope and optimism that, man, once Isaiah Pacheco comes back, that's a pretty nasty duo right there.
That's the other thing. Like, all these players that were doom and gloom over losing, eventually, a couple of them we might Hollywood is more of a
playoffs, but Pacheco's going to be back.
Back.
I mean, I am blown away
at the doom and gloom over a 4-0 football team.
Yeah, I mean, it's the doom and gloom. I think can be about injuries.
Yes,
not about the start.
That's what I was going to say. Is that injuries are more important than any win in September.
Absolutely.
Because right now the world-beating Buffalo Bills just got walked down the field on by Baltimore, who's 1-2.
Yes,
and they were dead until the Cowboys game, and now they're
on the upswing. No, these
like
are
the Patriots in their time when we were beating them in September, and we beat them 40-17 with Alex Smith and a team that didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's all about bettering yourself and having the best version of yourself in January.
Right, when it matters.
It's not now. Right? So we know this team is the weakest version of the Chiefs team. The fear is that can they ever get to their strongest point with all these injuries? But today, what I would have loved to almost open the show with, I mean, I am blown away that Kareem Hunt touched the ball 16 times.
Well, after the first
he was
carry,
targeted
I'm not.
one extra time.
I mean, the first time he touched the ball, it was like, okay, well, they weren't lying about
run with it.
The what was the hip issue? There was an issue. I can't remember what that
I think it was a hip issue. Yeah, I think you're onto something there.
So,
but Kareem Hunt made the most of his carries. And we talked about hot hand last week. How are they going to handle the games moving forward? Do you just say Carson Steele is your guy? Well, if you have watched enough Andy Reid games to this point, if you're a running back, and I remember this very well in the Eric Bieniemy days, if you were a running back and you fumbled, there's a chance you're not getting back out there on the field. You might get out there for a couple of pass protection plays. You might even get a screen call. Carson Steele fumbled, right, on the first drive of the game after the big catch and run that Kelsey had, or the long reception that Kelsey had for 38 yards to set the Chiefs up nicely. What did Carson Steele do? He fumbled. You know how many more times he carried it in that game? One.
Yeah.
One more time. Kareem Hunt had 14 carries in this game. Averaged nearly 5 yards per carry. He ran hard. He ran efficiently. He was tough to bring down. And oh, by the way, he also had 2 catches for 16 yards, was targeted 3 times. I think Kareem Hunt's the number 1 running back going into the game against the Saints. Or I'll regret those words, and Kareem Hunt will be the one to fumble in the opening drive. And then it's running back by committee. It's hot hand, right?
It already kind of might be.
It is, yeah. If Samaje Perine gets hot one game, I got no issue going back to him. But remember, we talked about that Isaiah Pacheco stat line, right? That if every single week the collection of running backs can give you what Isaiah Pacheco usually would. Well, today, I wouldn't say this is really an Isaiah Pacheco stat line because he wouldn't carry the ball 26 times, but you take out Patrick Mahomes' carries and his yardage, who he had 5 for 12, so take away 12 yards from the total 101 there. That puts you at 89, right? 89 yards on 21 carries. 21 for 89. I'm terrible at math, so even if I'm wrong on that, hopefully it's just by a few yards there. But to me, that's kind of an Isaiah Pacheco stat line. Running hard, lots of carries, you get close to 90 to 100 yards. I can live with that. And today, Kareem Hunt was one of the main reasons the running back room was able to have somewhat of an efficient day. All right, for our last caller of the show, we're going to go to Phil. Phil, what's on your mind, man?
I think it's just important to note that the reason we've been able to win Super Bowls the last couple of years is because we've got a quarterback who will throw a ball that'll change the script of the game, like the bomb to Worthy. The same quarterback is able to run for a first down on 3rd and 5 or 10 out of a scramble, and that same quarterback is able to go the length of the field in the fourth quarter to put us ahead. And the constant with that is always defensively, we're always in that game in the fourth quarter. We're not behind by 2 scores. There aren't many teams in the National Football League this year that are consistent defensively. The Eagles held the high-flying Saints to 12 points last week, and then they gave up 30-plus today in Tampa Bay. Buffalo, who's the best team on the planet, just gave up an 87-yard touchdown run to Derrick Henry. But I think as long as we stay consistent defensively and don't have any injuries on that side of the ball, we'll be fine because we're always able to fit it in. I mean, 78 and 22 means something. He's 78 and 22 in his first 100 starts in the regular season. That means, and the last time he threw a desperation ball in the playoffs was to Tyreek Hill, and that's the last time they lost in the playoffs. So I think people are worrying over not much. And we're going to find out soon enough anyway, because we've got New Orleans who scored 30 points in a game this year. We got Tampa Bay who scored 30 points in a game this year, and the Niners have scored 30 points in a game this year. So the defense is going to have to put together some games here in the next month to keep us undefeated, and I don't have any doubt that they can do it.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate the phone call, Phil, and that'll wrap it up for all of our callers today on the Red and Gold Postgame Show. But I do think there are a lot of reasons, honestly, to remain optimistic about what this offense can do. Andy Reid is a mastermind when it comes to play calling. If you disagree with punting on 4th and 2 from the opponent's 48-yard line, hey, I get it. You can disagree with decisions like that. But in terms of play calling, there's nobody better. And even when you take away key weapons in that offense, the Chiefs find a way to get value out of guys that maybe you didn't think could ever give you that type of value. I don't think going into today, many people thought Kareem Hunt was going to carry the ball 14 times, but here we are. I don't think many people, after last week's performance, thought Xavier Worthy would have 73 yards receiving. Yes, 54 of them came on one play. But still, it's week to week with this thing. And we do know that there's going to be a couple of games, probably more so on the road, where the defense is going to have to win those games. They're going to have to win in the trenches. They've been able to do that in a handful of games this year. But win ugly, 13-10, 17-14. They're going to have to do that because when you do lose 3 skill guys, your starting running back, your number 1 wide receiver, your number 2 wide receiver, it's going to show. It's going to show from time to time. And today, you fell behind 10-0, had turnovers on your first 2 drives. And what were you able to do? Overcome that adversity without your number 1 wide receiver and win 17-10. I'm not saying the Chargers had the best game plan or the best plays or the most available team out there, or most available players, because they had a lot of guys and key guys that were banged up. But the Chiefs were ones that made plays late. Patrick Mahomes put together a game-winning drive, as he's done so many times before. Now it's going to get a little bit more difficult with not having your number 1 and number 2 wide receivers, likely for the remaining parts of 2024. Hopefully for Hollywood Brown, we'll be able to see him come playoff time. Okay, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear from the head coach himself in Andy Reid. He's coming up on the Red and Gold Postgame Show on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Against the Chargers late in the game was our defensive play of the game, brought to you by Delicato Family Wines and Boda-Box. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Boda-Box, the ultimate tailgate wine. Boda-Box is the premium boxed wine that wins with wine critics. Boda-Box, this is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Boda-Box Vineyards, Manteca, California. Well, if you've been listening long enough by now, we spent a lot of time talking about Rashee Rice and the feared torn ACL that he suffered on a play that Patrick Mahomes threw an interception. We'll be hearing from Patrick Mahomes a little bit later on in the show. But also, we talked about Kareem Hunt and his effectiveness in his first game back with the Kansas City Chiefs. We talked about Xavier Worthy. We talked about this defense dialing it up at the right time. And we still got plenty of more audio coming your way before we'll send you off into the second half of Sunday Night Football, a big one between the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. But want to get to some Andy Reid audio. Here is what Big Red had to say after the 17-10 win over the LA Chargers, moving the Chiefs to 4-0 for the first time since 2020.
All right. I'd like to thank our fans for being here and supporting us. They were tremendous. A lot of red in the stands. Jim Harbaugh doing a great job here. He was down a few guys, so but what a game plan they had, and did a nice job coaching. So with that, I'm proud of our guys for hanging in there. Easily could have gone a different direction there, but the guys supported each other. I thought our defense stepped up in key situations, and whether it's Tranquil coming back here and he ended up having 10 tackles, led our team in tackles. Chris Jones had the two big sacks, and then the big fourth down play. The list goes on with all the guys. I thought our secondary played tight and challenged. I thought the linebackers were flying around, Bolton just moving around and making plays all over the place, and then the D line. Taking a lot of different looks from Spags and Joe and executing them like they did. Offensively, Kels had a Chiefs career day for receptions, or broke the record for receptions. He didn't have. Anyways, you guys know what I'm saying. Worthy, it was great to get Worthy going. You got an idea of his talent, speed, and ability against man coverage. Kareem stepped in. Had 14 carries for 69 yards, a couple throws for 16 yards. So he had a big day, and I'm sure he'll be very sore tomorrow. And then third downs, again, Nagy had a great plan set up all the way around offensively, and just kept reinforcing to these guys to just hang in there. The things that we're doing offensively are self-inflicted wounds on ourselves between penalties and interception, so on. So to take care of that. But anyways, third downs, we were 9 for 15. Noah had 4 big plays for 40 yards and big catches. And then with playing Kareem more, I just kind of went with a hot hand. I'm not down on Carson. He had the fumble. He'll figure that out. We're lucky to have three good guys in there. P. Ryan had a touchdown and had some nice runs for us too. So but we're in good shape there at that position. And then last is Rashee Rice will, Rashee will have his knee checked out tomorrow with an MRI, and it's his knee. And I think, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm sure it's not as good a news as we want. So, but we'll see how it goes. Anyways, with that, time's yours.
Now, speaking of Rashee Rice and the injury, which now we fear it to be a torn ACL, Andy Reid had the chance to talk about game planning without him. And I think more importantly on that's going to have to happen now moving forward in the regular season and the postseason. So here's what Andy Reid had to say about game planning with this offense after Rice went down.
Yeah, well, the guys all hung together. I mean, I feel terrible for Rashee, and because he's having a fantastic year. And, we'll hope for the best on the report. But if he is out, then, but I thought Pat stepped up and just said, hey, we're going to roll. Negs was constantly, like I said, going through there and just saying, hey, just hang with it and let's go. I thought the coaches did a good job being positive with that and the best way they could. Yeah.
Is that impressive to you to see guys be kind of resilient with a little bit of a shock?
Yeah. No, listen, that's this group though, and they've been that way, from training camp on. So I mean, it's they all support each other, and that's a positive thing.
I think the unfortunate part about that injury too is, Patrick Mahomes was trying to make a play and, make a tackle in a weird way going low for the legs, but actually ended up taking out Rashee Rice when he had just punched out the ball, and the Chiefs were kind of able to fall on it, but I believe Wanya Morris was out of bounds when that happened, so the ball went back to the Chargers, and they were able to set up a field goal to put them up 10-0. But, yeah, game planning after Rashee Rice. I mean, Andy Reid said it, that in camp, it's what these guys have to know how to do. They have to step up into different roles when guys go down because you're not always going to make it through 17 regular season games with all of your number ones. And speaking of another part of this offense, another unit that does not have their number one out there, had other guys step up, was the running back room. Without Isaiah Pacheco, it was Kareem Hunt today getting the majority of the carries with 14 of them. Also had 16 total touches in the game. Here's what Andy Reid had to say about using Kareem Hunt as the hot hand.
Well, he looked good. He did some good things. So I would have expected him to do well, but because he's been a good player for a long time. So, but yeah, no, I thought he did a nice job for us.
Did it look like he turned back the clock 6 years? You think at all?
Yeah, well, you can say that. Yeah, you can say that. You and I need to turn back the clock about 6 years, Adam.
6 years.
Yeah.
And with Kareem Hunt, the production he had today, I'm not sure the Chiefs do win if they don't get any production from their running back room. They desperately needed somebody to step up with the way that the offense wasn't really able to move the football in the first half, really, until that 54-yard touchdown pass to Xavier Worthy. Now, with it being the Chargers, a team that was without a lot of key guys, Pete Sweeney had talked about this. Both him and I talked about this on the Arrowhead Pride radio show, that weird games are going to happen. And even though the spread was big in this game, it always seems to be a battle with the Los Angeles Chargers. This is what Andy Reid had to say on all these games seemingly being close in L.A.
Yeah, not always. We've given up a couple games to the Chargers, so it's but they are battles, and I think both teams enjoy the challenge of playing each other. I know the Chargers are lucky to have the people that they have right now, so they're in good hands.
It is a team that is a little bit more talented than I thought they would be after they cut a lot of weight from their team a year ago. There were a lot of guys with big-time contracts that didn't live up to those contracts. So this was more of a revamped team, and they gave the Chiefs all they could handle today with a lot of key guys out, like Derwin James. Bosa was also not available to go. You look at the offensive line, Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt not able to go in this one, and the Chargers still had a chance late in that game to put together a game-tying drive and gave the Chiefs a battle today, gave them all they could handle in a 17-10 outcome. Now, speaking of Kareem Hunt putting up big numbers in this game, not sure the Chiefs come close to winning this game or even putting up 17 points without the production of Travis Kelce, who had his best game of the season to this point, but still plenty of games to go. Here's what Andy Reid had to say on the performance of number 87.
Yeah, they played quite a little bit of zone out there, and Kelce did a nice job of just getting in windows, and then when they did play man, he was able to do a nice job there. It wasn't as much double team as maybe he's seen or settling on him as much as he's seen. So he did very good.
And when those defenses go zone, it allows Travis Kelce to exploit a lot of the weaknesses of that zone. I think he's one of the best in the game, even at 35, 36 years old, and just sitting in the middle of the zone, just being available to Patrick Mahomes. And if you do need to improvise, those two know how to improvise. And a couple of the plays, he was able to get it to Kelce when he's rolling out of the pocket. He knows where to be, right place, the right time. Now, Andy Reid also touched on Travis Kelce in kind of not being as effective in the first 3 games of the year, but then having a breakout performance today. Was he ever worried about it? Let's hear what he had to say.
I really don't care what anybody thinks, to be honest with you. I watch what the defense does and how they respect them, and so I take it off of that, and I watch Trav every day, so I get to see him and how he works. He never wants to come out and practice in the game. He's all in all the time. So I don't worry about all that.
Did he need this?
You have to ask him. He's been all in, so he's been so positive. He doesn't ever go there.
And Travis Kelce always seems to step up big in these Chargers games. We remember the walk-off touchdown that he had in overtime. Actually, two of them, really, though the second one wasn't a walk-off. It was just a go-ahead touchdown late in a game in L.A., so I think everybody should have expected a guy like Travis Kelce to have a big-time performance today, and that he did. But Andy Reid also talked about the career success that he's had against the Chargers because he just was able to notch one more victory in his belt against this division rival.
Andy, a nice welcome back to L.A. for you personally, but you guys have won 11 straight of the Chargers home games, including Mexico, so they all add up, right?
They add up. That's all right. Listen, you take everyone as its own, so yeah, tough games.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to gloat too much about winning all those games. He'll just say, hey, you take them when you can get them. And today, for at least the first 10 to 15 minutes of that game, I don't think that many people out there were too confident it was going to happen. But if you've watched the Chiefs and Andy Reid long enough, you know that against the Chargers, they're usually able to overcome some early game deficits. Now, he also had the chance to talk about the offense, which now is down another key player in Rashee Rice. But what does he think about this group right now, 4 games into the season, 4-0, but also maybe not playing to their level?
Yeah, I mean, we're making way too many mistakes. We get these drives rolling and then shoot ourselves in the foot. And once you do that, the percentages go way down on you having a successful drive and scoring points. So we've got to take care of that, and can't instead of going backwards.
This is an offense that even last year at times shot itself in the foot a lot. If they lost games, you could almost always point to a certain situation and go, yep, that's the reason they lost. They shot themselves in the foot. The other team didn't play better than them. The Chiefs just played really poorly. But I also think you have to take that with a grain of salt and realize that sometimes teams make you play poorly, and you have to give those teams credit when they are able to do so. Now, for Patrick Mahomes, I think with a lot of the interceptions this year, we can't say that the teams baited him into it. Maybe in a couple of them, I thought the interception Justin Simmons had last week for Atlanta was baiting Patrick Mahomes, but he's been great at doing that in his career against number 15. But a lot of them just forcing the issue. Just not a very high football IQ play, and he's a very high football IQ type of quarterback, so uncharacteristic we can certainly call it. Though I will say this, after the interception that led to the injury of Rashee Rice, I thought Patrick Mahomes played pretty well. A couple of bad drops from his receivers, but he had a game-winning drive, and when you can put together your best drive at the very end, that at times is all that matters. But here's what his head coach had to say about his performance in the win against L.A.
Yeah, keep firing. Just keep going. I'm again, I've been through enough games with him to know how he operates, and he's all in. He didn't want to throw those interceptions. But he's willing to find a way and listen and so on. So he does a great job with all that.
And I like how Andy Reid said that and backed him up. And I don't think Patrick Mahomes needs to be backed up. When you've won multiple MVPs, you've won multiple Super Bowls, and your worst season is losing in the AFC Championship game in overtime, I think you can live with a couple of September mistakes that he's had. But I love that he said, basically, well, keep throwing, keep firing. Because if you are concerned about Patrick Mahomes, how do you want to fix it? Not have him throw the football? Simplify it? Have him take more deep shots? I mean, when you have a quarterback like this, I don't think you need to fix anything. He's going to be able to fix things on his own, and he's shown that he's been able to do that and get out of some bad ruts. Last year, he was in a bad rut. Then he won the Super Bowl and played great football in the postseason. Right now, he's not playing his best football, but at the end of the day, the Chiefs are 4-0 after a 17-10 win over the Los Angeles Chargers. All right, the last little piece of audio we have here from Andy Reid is about that final touchdown drive, and here is what he had to say that on the drive that put Kansas City up 17-10.
Yeah, well, that being the start of it, and then everybody else had contributed there. We were able to get what we ended up doing, Steve, was we got a nice mix of the run and the pass together, and we were getting positive yards on them. And so once you get that going, you're okay. I thought the O-line kind of just buckled down, and they got the run game. They got the run game going.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay, good. Thanks.
And that was Andy Reid after the Chiefs' 17-10 win over the LA Chargers. And right now you are locked into Sports Radio 810 WHB, but more specifically into the Red and Gold Postgame Show, brought to you by Boda Box Wine. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Boda Box, the ultimate tailgate wine. Boda Box, this is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Boda Box Vineyards, Manteca, California. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll hear from the quarterback in that game, Patrick Mahomes, what he had to say about Rashee Rice going down, his performance, and the team's overall outlook moving forward the rest of the season. You were locked into Sports Radio 810 WHB. you can make the right call as well by visiting shamrockroofer.com. Shamrock Roofing and Construction, one call does it all. And again, that was the second big-time connection between Patrick Mahomes and Xavier Worthy. This one was to ice the game on the final true offensive play for the Chiefs in that game. Went down to the 2-minute warning, and then Patrick Mahomes was just able to kneel on the football to win that game. The second time he's been able to do it in back-to-back weeks, not needing a game-winning play or having to need a toe to be out of bounds to win with the defense on the field. So the Chiefs now 4-0. Patrick Mahomes hasn't played his best, but at the end of the day, you're not going to complain too much regardless of what has happened when your team is still undefeated. Right now, an update in the Sunday night football game between the Bills and the Ravens. The Ravens up 14-3 on Buffalo, and Baltimore has the football. We'll be sending you over to Sunday Night Football at the conclusion of the Red and Gold postgame show. All right, let's hear from Patrick Mahomes and his thoughts after a 17-10 win over the Chargers. Had another interception in this game, so that makes it 4 consecutive games to open up the year with a pick. We know he's not played his best, and we know now it's going to be even harder on him to get things turned around when he's not going to have his number 1 or his number 2 wide receiver. But here is what he had to say on the interception, what he saw there, and Rashee Rice getting banged up on the same play.
Obviously the corner made a good play. I was trying to fire it to Trav on his body. I overthrew him a little bit, turned the ball over, and then I thought Rashee really made a good play. I was trying to tackle the guy and obviously rolled up on him. But if I just don't turn the ball over, that never happens. So you just got to try to get better at that.
Yeah, I'm sure tonight Rashee Rice obviously feels horrible about potentially and what is likely to end his season with a torn ACL. But I would say right behind Rashee Rice in terms of feeling bad would be Patrick Mahomes, because if he doesn't throw the interception, if he doesn't try to make a tackle, that doesn't happen. But that's also really tough to pin on somebody. In the heat of competition, it would be great if Patrick Mahomes didn't throw a pick. But also, I think there'd be people out there criticizing him if he didn't try to make a play and didn't try to make a tackle to stop a pick six from happening. It's just wrong place, wrong time. An unfortunate series of events that led to Rashee Rice not getting banged up, potentially having his season ended. So far worse than just getting banged up. You could call it that for a bone bruise or something like that. But with an injury like this, it's devastating. It's devastating for Rice. It's devastating for Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and this entire fan base, because Rashee Rice had been so fantastic in the first 3 games of this season and probably was going to be on pace to have a 4th consecutive really good game for the Chiefs receiving core. Now Patrick Mahomes also had the chance to talk about someone else stepping up in the absence of not only Rashee Rice but Hollywood Brown. Could be Xavier Worthy, could be somebody else in this offense.
I mean, I didn't know exactly what happened because obviously I was trying to make the tackle, but I know Rashee and how tough he is. So him being down like that, I knew it wasn't good. All we can do is pray that the X-rays in my eyes and stuff like that are better than what it looked. But next man up until he's back.
Now, you've heard us talk about it a few times in the first couple Red and Gold postgame shows that he's trying to do a little bit too much right now. He's forcing the issue when he doesn't need to force it. And tonight was really the first time I think we saw him take the podium and I think be a little bit somber about that play. I thought Travis was open. I overthrew him a little bit and the interception happened. I think in the other ones we'd heard him say, here's why I did that. Here's why I need to pocket the ball. Today, it felt like he thought it was the right decision at least, or he could have gotten there. It was just a bad throw. And more importantly, the pocket was clean on that. He wasn't under duress like a couple of those other interceptions that he'd had. But here's what he had to say on maybe doing too much right now in the first 4 games of the season.
I think more than anything, it's just trying to get everybody kind of settled back down, including myself. I think at the beginning of the game in general, we were trying to do too much, and that's why we had the fumble and then the interception. But the guys stepped up and filled as good as they can the role that he has in our offense, which is a big one. And so all we can do now is kind of go back to the basics and try to get guys and opportunities to succeed. I thought Travis did a great job of stepping up and making plays like he always does. But at the end of the day, we got the win. That's what's important.
Travis Kelce certainly stepped up in this game once Rashee Rice went down. It was only a matter of time before he stepped up and had a game like that. But also, Kareem Hunt was able to step up with 14 carries on the ground and 16 total touches. Here is what Patrick Mahomes had to say about his performance.
I thought he did a great job. I mean, for someone that to come into an offense. I know it's an offense he'd been in, but an offense he hadn't played in years, and to be able to run the football hard, get well-earned yards, catch the ball out of the backfield. It was good to see, and I'm just glad Veach has built a great running back room that we can get guys to step up and make plays while Isaiah's not here.
I do think what is crazy about this running back room and the Chiefs being undefeated is that if I would have talked into this mic on, let's say, July 20th and said on week 4, the running back room will consist of Kareem Hunt, Samaje Perine, and Carson Steele, you would go, how bad did things get? For them to call Kareem Hunt back and for him to lead the team in carries, what had to happen there? Well, it's a good thing today that Kareem Hunt got the majority of the carries, but what's his role going to be moving forward? Here's what Patrick had to say on what he might think it could be.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been a guy that runs tough. He's hard to tackle, and you can see that. And he's going to make sure he finishes every single run and falls forward. And I think that was good to see. And I think he'll get more and more comfortable as the year goes on, and he'll be a role in our offense.
Well, we certainly think that Kareem Hunt is going to be a big contributor going into Monday Night Football against the New Orleans Saints, which we'll have the Red and Gold postgame show right after that game and probably into the early hours of the morning. But we would expect Kareem Hunt to be a big part of what this team is going to want to do offensively because they're just losing guys left and right. But with this running back room, it is important that they continue to have at least one guy perform in the way that Kareem Hunt did today. So what does Patrick Mahomes think about this running back room and what the game plan should be moving forward?
Not necessarily. I mean, I thought he was going to have a role in the offense. I don't know what the exact stats are, but I know he ran the ball well. And with our running back room and just kind of in general in this offense, if you got a guy going, you just let him go. It's not about how the game plan is kind of planned out. It's just if a guy's hot that day, you keep feeding him the football, and that's what we did today.
And that's kind of the unpredictable part about this running back room. You go into this Saints game maybe all week in practice, and with that extra day, you're talking about getting Kareem Hunt involved. Let's give him the ball 5-6 times on the first drive. But then maybe the Saints kind of zero in on him and find a way to slow him down. Then it becomes the Carson Steele game again. Or maybe Kareem Hunt fumbles early on like Carson Steele did today, and they say, okay, we're going to somebody else for right now. And Carson Steele or Samaje Perine gets hot. That's what we can expect from this running back room. It is all going to be about the hot hand, and whoever is running the ball well in that game, they're probably going to get the majority of those carries. Now, I haven't seen the spread on the game yet for the Saints, but whatever it is, I think it's going to be closer what the spread is because this was, I think, a 7.5, 8.5 point spread. And yes, it did come very, very close, but the Chiefs were either losing or tied for the majority of that game. So lots of close games so far. All 4 of them have been nail-biters, and I would expect a lot more this year to be even more nerve-wracking than it was today. So what did Patrick Mahomes think about all these close games so far in the regular season?
I mean, it prepares you for the playoffs. In the playoffs, you're going to be in one-score games. I think the NFL is just very balanced. And we're playing division games and against great opponents. And so these are games that we have to find ways to get win. And I feel like we're not playing – I mean, it's like a record playing, but I feel like we're not playing our best football. But we're winning football games, and that's a big credit to our defense. It's a big credit to guys stepping up offensively in second halves. I'm glad we're getting wins, and we'll keep building and try to keep getting better.
And on guys stepping up, I mean, Kareem Hunt, yes. Travis Kelce, yes. But also Xavier Worthy. I did not expect him to be as involved with this offense so early on in the year, but I also didn't think that Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown would now be unavailable. So what did Patrick Mahomes think about his performance today?
Yeah, I mean, a big-time catch down the field, some big-time third-down conversions. He's a great football player, and I think he's just getting more and more comfortable within the offense. I think when I go back to the tape, I thought there's going to be a couple more that I thought about taking those chances, and I think he ended up winning. And so as I build comfortability with him, I'll keep taking those chances. And when he makes plays like that, like he did today, it'll give me that ability to kind of shoot him and let him go out there one-on-one and make catches.
I think today was the most impressive, or actually, I would also say getting open on that third down play to ice the game. That was very impressive as well. But to me, being able to get past his man in one-on-one coverage and also catch a pass like that from Patrick Mahomes, that to me was the most impressive play that Xavier Worthy has had so far in his NFL career. Now, Travis Kelce much older than Xavier Worthy, also does remember the time when Kareem Hunt used to play for the Chiefs, unlike Worthy, but Travis Kelce's, 15 years older than him, still had the performance of the day, I think, in terms of just the number of targets, the number of yards that he put up. Travis Kelce, I said Xavier Worthy was the star of today's game. You can't come close to putting up 17 points, even as little as that is, without Travis Kelce today and being able to find the soft spots of the zone. Here's what Patrick Mahomes had to say about one of his best friends' performance today against the Chargers.
I think it's a mixture of everything. I mean, obviously, with Rashid going down early, you got to put Kelce back in that situation where he's getting high volume catches. And then just with the Chargers, were taking away some of the outside stuff and leaving the middle of the field open. And we were able to get the Trav and some of those zone coverages. But I mean, it's the whole Kelce thing in general hasn't been a worry to me. I mean, I know whenever we need him, he's going to make plays, and that's what he did today.
Certainly made a lot of them. He and Worthy were the ones that made the majority of the plays offensively and finding just enough, right? We talked about last week doing exactly enough to just beat your opponent on that day. And the Chiefs with their 17-10 win, hey, it wasn't pretty offensively, but it was enough today because of the performances of Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy, and more on that connection that Mahomes had with him, and also looking ahead with Xavier Worthy in this offense, what he might be able to bring and what this offense could bring. Here's what's next in the eyes of Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, I told him if the safety comes down, I'm throwing it pretty much as far as I can and letting him go catch it, and that's what he did. And what was your second question?
Just about any particular significance to you?
I mean, it's cool because, I mean, I know how hard it is in the NFL, and, I mean, we've been blessed to play in a lot of games, a lot of big games, and win a couple of Super Bowls here. But at the end of the day, you don't take it for granted, man. I mean, you're on a platform that you dreamed of as a little kid, and I think I try to enjoy those moments and have 100 games in. I'm going to enjoy this moment, and then we're going to move on because that's how the NFL works.
As I said, it wasn't pretty today. This offense hasn't looked its best, in my opinion, since like the end part of the third quarter of game one, right? That was the last time I think I felt really strong about this offense. A, because Rashid Rice is still out there. B, we didn't know the significance of Hollywood Brown's injury just yet. We thought he might be able to play in week 2, but ever since that end of the game against the Ravens, this offense has struggled. There have been turnovers. There have been bad plays, bad play calls, drop passes, and I think the Chiefs are very fortunate to be 4-0. But how does Patrick Mahomes think this offense can clean up some of its mistakes going into week 5?
I think it's a matter of cleaning it up. I mean, we scored 17 and we scored the 20s these last few weeks, and I feel like it's just a play here and there. It's the interception I throw to Travis, I put on his body, that gets a drive going. It's we have a fumble in the red zone on the first drive where we got some momentum going, and in this league, if you're scoring upper 20s to lower 30s, that's good football, that's good offense, and so we're close. I mean, Coach Reid saying we keep preaching it. I know some Chiefs fans are probably annoyed by it, but that's all you can do in this league is keep pushing and pushing to get better, and I think it's going to pay off in the end.
You know, we had heard Andy Reid say that he doesn't care what other people think in Travis Kelce's early season struggles of just not putting up Travis Kelce numbers, but Patrick Mahomes did say the locker room really was supporting Travis during this time. Not that he truthfully needed it. I mean, we know he's a confident player. We know he is a soon-to-be Hall of Famer, and he's going to have games like he did today, and there's going to be a lot more times for him to be the leading receiver for this Chiefs team. But more on the locker room support of Travis Kelce. Here is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I saw it on social media. So no, it's that's a close knit group, and that whole room. I mean, the whole offense is very close. I mean, we've been through adversity together. We've been on a lot of road trips, going to the Super Bowl, and a lot of these guys have been in at least one of the Super Bowls. And so you build this brotherhood, and I think they had heard all the outside noise, and they know how much of a leader Travis is. And so it was cool for them cool to see them show their support. And then him to go out there and beat Travis because that's who he is.
Did Travis say anything about it?
Nah, man. I mean, Travis just wants to win at the end of the day, and I think that's what you take for granted in this league. Is I mean, we've had a great offense and we've done all these cool things, and it's been fun. But at the end of the day, it's all about winning, and I think he's the true leader when it comes to that. He doesn't care who gets the stats; he just wants to win the football game.
Yeah, I think at this point in his career, that's all that really does matter to Travis Kelce. If they keep winning, getting to Super Bowls, he's not going to complain about his workload or how many catches that he's getting in any particular game, even if it's a primetime game or a game like today, just against a division rival. And lastly, Patrick Mahomes gave some serious praise to a defense that shut down Justin Herbert in that offense after the opening drive.
Yeah, I mean, I knew we had to pick up our urgency. We weren't playing good, but I think the best thing about it is, I mean, no one talks about it, and they start to now, but our defense is a really good defense, and they know how to shut the door and keep us in football games, and then they believe that the offense is going to find a way to score enough points in the end, and that's what we did today. I mean, they had quick 10 points. We put them in terrible positions. They held them to a field goal, and then they shut the door the rest of the game. I mean, and that's what it takes to be a great football team is everybody stepping up. And our defense has done that this entire year. And offensively, we found a way to get enough points.
And that was Patrick Mahomes after today's 17-10 win over the Los Angeles Chargers. You were listening to the Red and Gold Postgame Show, brought to you by Boda Box Wine. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Boda Box, the ultimate tailgate wine. Boda Box, this is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Boda Box Vineyards, Manteca, California. When we come back, we're going to hear from our guy, Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. He's coming up on Sports Radio 810 WHB. help your business grow. You can also make the right choice today by going to choicesolutions.com. And now we're going to hop on the phone lines and talk with Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. He's brought to you by Cap One Lending. The Freedom Loan at Cap One is lending the exclusive loan that helps you pay your home off in less than half the time and gives you access to your home's equity without having to refinance. Go to CapOneLending.com today. Well, Matt, it's a 4-0 start for Kansas City, but in that same conversation, we're going to have to bring up the list of injuries this team has, but not just injuries to key players. So how are you feeling after this undefeated start, but also losing some of your top guys in some of those wins?
Well, I mean, obviously the Chiefs, they've had some losses, but they've won 4 games without Hollywood Brown. They've won a couple of games now without Isaiah Pacheco. Win a game today when they lose Rashee Rice. I mean, I don't know that I see anything necessarily slowing down this team. And they've done it despite the fact that their quarterback, all-world quarterback, says, hey, he hasn't played very well. They're 4-0. And I'm looking at it, and Patrick Mahomes is number 3 in the NFL in passing yards. He's number 3 in touchdown passes. He's 8th in quarterback rating, which isn't all that. Really, the only blemish on his record really is the interceptions. He's got 5 interceptions on the season. I mean, what are we talking about here? If Patrick Mahomes straightens himself out, I mean, isn't that when the rest of the league's going to get really scared? Because I mean, Mahomes has proven it. He can elevate the guys around him. So I think the rest of the league should be concerned that Mahomes at some point is going to get right.
Well, you look at this offense now, they're without their number 1 wide receiver, their number 2 wide receiver, their running back. There's also some uncertainty at left tackle, not with injuries, but really who the starter is, whether it be Wanye Morris or Kingsley Suamataia. So for those out there kind of holding on to that hope of, hey, in past years, even when they struggled in September, they eventually were fine by the time the playoffs rolled around. Is there any reason to, dash that optimism right now because they're still 4-0? Or do we need to sit here now and go, maybe they don't figure things out because they're not going to be healthy enough come playoff time?
I mean, I'll be honest, Jack, I don't have a huge concern about that, mostly because there's 2 things about this team that stand out to me. I mean, one, obviously, is that the defense is playing extremely well. Mm-hmm. And I think you would have to have a couple of injuries on the defensive side of the football to start worrying about that. I mean, if something is to happen to Chris Jones, another injury to Nick Bolton, Justin Reed, Trent McDuffie, I mean, a couple of the bigger names on that defense. I mean, if something were to happen, then you'd start to get concerned about the defensive side. Right now, though, the defensive side of football is playing well enough to win games on its own. On the offensive side, yeah, I mean, they've had these injuries. They've got the question at left tackle. And on top of that, have not played very well. And yet they're 4-0. Does anybody really think that Patrick Mahomes is not going to figure it out and, what he has and how to use it? That whatever it is that has been hindering him through the first 4 games isn't going to get straightened out? I mean, past history tells us that it does get figured out. And if that's the case, I mean, that's the scary thing, is that the NFL teams around the league should be taking advantage of the fact that the Chiefs are not playing well offensively. And if they can't do that, what are they going to do in December and January when the Chiefs probably are playing well offensively?
And, Matt, we saw this a couple of weeks ago that once Isaiah Pacheco went down with his injury and we knew the extent of what it was, Brett Veach went out there and brought back Kareem Hunt, who had his Chiefs return today and was really good. He was the number 1 running back today, and I don't think a lot of people thought he would get 14 carries in his first game back. But looking at this wide receiver room now, are we to expect at this point that probably in the next few days Brett Veach is going to go out there and look for an immediate replacement, or is this going to be let's see how the first couple games go before we make any decision on bringing somebody in?
I mean, that's, the timing of it does give you the advantage because you've got about almost a month before the trade deadline. So, that gives you plenty of time. If you're Brett Veach, you don't have to panic. You don't have to say to yourself, wait a minute, we're down 2 receivers now. We need to go out and get a couple of guys. And this is granting that we don't know for sure about Rashee Rice, but obviously working on the assumption that he might be done for the year. You don't have to just jump out there and make a deal automatically. you can see what you've got. I mean, you can see, how Mahomes is able to elevate the guys around him. I mean, a big part of, obviously, the offensive woes is just going to be Mahomes getting more comfortable. Will Mahomes be more comfortable with the receivers that he's worked with throughout the offseason, guys on the practice squad, whether it's Justin Ross or Nico Remigio, Montrell Washington, if it's one of those guys, versus just somebody off another club or off the street? I mean, it's 6 of one, half dozen of another probably. But, we do have a pretty strong track record that guys coming into an Andy Reid offense midseason, it's not great. It's really, really hard to do. So, hey, are there players out there, one, that have some Andy Reid experience or West Coast experience or are simply good enough that it doesn't matter? Yeah, there's a few of those out there. But, can you really expect that somebody's going to be coming in midseason and replace Rashee Rice? No. That to me, I think is just, that's just like, wishing and hoping you win the lottery tomorrow. It's possible, Jack, but it's probably not going to happen.
Well, one of the things that I think will give a lot of people optimism that, even though the Chiefs are down a number 1 wide receiver, a number 2 wide receiver, and their starting running back, we're kind of forgetting that this defense is damn good and was really good last year. So in the past, you would need, 28 to 30 points to beat some of those playoff teams. Last year, you didn't even need 20 points in some of those games to beat a playoff team. So should the focus shift now on maybe not trying to make this offense a 30 to 35 point per game type of unit, but more so trying to win some of these games with your defense because there's a lot of talent over there?
Yeah, and, it was interesting to hearing some of the comments after the game from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes just talking about, riding the hot hand in the backfield and what you need to do. And remember, we're not even talking about Isaiah Pacheco being gone for the season. He will be back at some point. And you look at what you're getting right now. Can you imagine if we're talking about at some point during the season that Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt are both in the backfield and you're able to alternate those guys? That sounds pretty scary based on what we saw today. We'll see if Kareem keeps it up and, what he does kind of have left in the tank. It has to be more than one game to really prove what he's got. But you have to be encouraged by what you see today. But, once again, if you look at this receiver room as it's situated right now, obviously the losing Rice hurts. But how would you compare it to last year's receiver room when they won a Super Bowl? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure it's significantly worse than it was last year. Especially it's different because you've got Worthy still, and obviously Worthy, 2 huge plays today. And if the Chiefs are able to continue to kind of work him into the offense, that's going to be huge. You're not going to replace Rashee Rice, but, can you replace his production with some of the other guys? Yeah, I think it's possible. It's not going to be easy, but it's possible.
When you evaluate, where Patrick Mahomes is at with this offense, there's been a couple of interceptions, but is this something that right now is more of an issue of having a lot of different guys out there every single week? Week 1, you do have Rashee Rice out there, but maybe there was hope for week 2, Hollywood Brown could be there. Then you get word that Hollywood Brown's not going to be out there for basically the entire regular season. Then there's games where Travis Kelce isn't performing up to the level that we all think Travis Kelce is, and there's games where Isaiah Pacheco's not out there. So do you think some of these turnovers forcing the issue is just trying to get comfortable with this offense, or is it something else that maybe we're not looking at right now?
I thought there was something really telling that Mahomes did say after the game today, and especially starting out, and he applied it to the entire offense, but I think he was talking more about himself than anybody else. He said just guys are trying to do too much. And I think that is 100%, what has probably been Mahomes' biggest problem throughout the first 4 games of the season, and was certainly probably explained a few of his problems early in this game. You take out the first quarter in particular, and honestly, Mahomes had a pretty good game. He's had some good moments, and that second half, I thought, especially with the defensive effort that the Chargers put out there today. Mahomes had a couple of throws in the second half, including a couple to Kelce, that were just vintage Mahomes. When he plays within himself, and that's always, I think, been true of Mahomes, but, I think it's been particularly true this season. When he plays within himself, I'm just not sure there's anybody better in the league. It's when he's trying to put everything on himself. and he's trying to win games. And and I've said in the past, it always felt like at times it felt like Mahomes was trying to throw 14-point touchdown passes. Because he does take everything on himself, and he does try to shoulder that burden, and tries to make plays. And when that happens, mistakes happen. You can make things too fine, and I think that has certainly been, some of the interceptions have absolutely been either Mahomes is trying to do too much or he's trying to be too perfect with the ball. Whenever you do that, NFL quarterbacks will always tell you it's going to lead to problems and mistakes. When Mahomes just goes out there and slings it, and I think he did that in the second half, and Andy Reid mentioned that too. I mean, how does Mahomes get through these struggles? Just keep firing. And, I mean, that is the right attitude to have, because history has shown that when Mahomes gets into these little funks where he's just not himself, how does he get out of it? He just gets out of it by continuing to fire and eventually finding his rhythm again.
Yeah, I don't think anybody should be overly concerned about what Patrick Mahomes looked like, because even Andy Reid said in the postgame, what are you going to tell him? To keep throwing, keep firing, because what are you going to want to do? Not have him throw the football and move the ball down the field? You can live with a couple of turnovers when it's still Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback. Matt, last question I have for you here. How caught off guard were you that Kareem Hunt had 16 touches in this game, but also did a lot with those 16 touches?
Yeah, the workload did throw me off, and I don't think it would have happened without the Carson Steele fumble. I mean, Steele got one carry after that fumble. He had some touches, and he had some snaps, but clearly, there was a change in the workload after that fumble, and maybe it wouldn't have stayed that way had Kareem not been effective. But he was out there averaging about 5 yards per carry. That's an effective back, and he was. It looked like he was gaining, 7-9 yards at a clip sometimes when maybe the Chiefs were only getting 3 or 4. And it seems like it helped everybody. Even, Samaje Perine gets a touchdown in the short yardage situation, which was an area where the Chiefs had really been struggling lately. So I was a little surprised, but after the Carson Steele fumble, I think that made it possible. And then it was just, what's Kareem going to do with those opportunities? And today, obviously, he made the most of them. I thought he still looked different than he looked 6 or 7 years ago. I think he looked more to me like a power back than maybe the speed back that we used to see. I don't know if he still has 75-yard touchdown runs in him, but I think he's got 5 yards of carry potential in him. And if he can do that, I mean, he might end up just being the starting running back the rest of the way until at least Pacheco comes back.
Well, Matt, thanks so much for your time as always, and we'll talk to you next Monday. It would be when the Chiefs gear up for the New Orleans Saints.
Hopefully we can get that one done, Jack, before midnight.
Let's hope so, because we'll be in for a long night per usual.
As always. Take care, my friend. Take it easy.
There he goes. That's our guy, Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. We always love getting his insight after a Chiefs win or loss, which to this point, no losses to talk about. And I think you can, as we talked about, Dylan, be negative about injuries happening to you, but not negative about where this team is at. As I've said before, and as I'll say again, if there is any coach, quarterback, GM to get it done when losing key guys like this, it would be the Kansas City Chiefs. And I say that because go back to last year with Cincinnati. Now, losing your quarterback is a little bit harder to overcome because I believe the drop-off between the starting quarterback and the number 2 quarterback should be a pretty sizable gap. But Cincinnati was not able to overcome it, even with good quarterback play from Jake Browning. That's not to take a shot at the Bengals, but there are few teams, in fact, there are no teams in the NFL that are off on the top of my head that have lost their number one running back, number 1 wide receiver, and number 2 wide receiver in a span of like 3 to 4 weeks. Now, we know Isaiah Pacheco's coming back. Matt Derrick talked about that. And then you feel juiced up about a running back room of Isaiah Pacheco, and if Kareem Hunt can look like this, if he's still got that burst, that boost, how can you not feel good about what this offense can look like? But I, for one, I welcome the challenge a little bit. I can't wait for next Monday night with what this offense rolls out. Because sometimes when your back's up against the wall a little bit of now you do have people doubting you of, well, you can't move the ball without Rice and without Hollywood and without Pacheco, and we just got scraps at this point. That's when I think you get that game that surprises a lot of people. You'll get that performance from Justin Watson or from Juju Smith-Schuster or from Noah Gray. I do not think there is any need to feel like this team can't get it done. Now, expectations can be tempered a little bit. We can't look at this group by losing 3 key guys and say, well, they'll be the exact same team. They won't. As I said, I think they have to basically reorganize that offense a little bit, have a different identity than maybe the one they thought they would have going into the year. This is not a knock on the Chiefs. It's really hard to overcome those type of injuries. Now they happen. It's a part of the game, but it also allows guys to step up. And today, guys stepped up. Against the Saints on Monday night, guys are going to have to step up, and you love that fact of it. It's a challenge that Patrick Mahomes can absolutely overcome. Andy Reid can as well. And let's see what Brett Veach does. Maybe he rolls with this group. Maybe he also wants to go out there and make a move or two to bolster this group. But they're 4-0. I ain't complaining at all about 4-0. I can feel a little bit down about the injuries they've suffered because it's not just a week or two. For some of these guys, you won't see them for a long, long time. But today, when guys needed to step up, they stepped up. And that's why the Chiefs are 4-0 and have a division win now over the Chargers. They will see them a little bit later on in the year at Arrowhead Stadium. Let's take one of our final breaks of the show. You are listening to the Red and Gold Postgame Show on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Green Light, which is brought to you by Green Light Dispensary, the unofficial sponsor of Kansas City's favorite football team. Look for the Green Light Stadium flyover banners at your favorite games this fall. GreenLightDispensary.com. Chiefs are 4-0, and they haven't played their best football just yet. But they've dealt with a lot of injuries, and injuries, quite honestly, you can't predict at any point. It's not like some of these guys, with the exception of Hollywood Brown, who got banged up in the preseason. But if you want to go back before that, they couldn't have predicted any of this type of stuff. Hollywood Brown going down, missing the regular season. Rashee Rice going down, likely missing the season. Isaiah Pacheco going down, 6 to 8 weeks you're talking about. But what says a lot about a team is how they handle that adversity. Who steps up and who comes through. And some of the most critical moments of a game. You know, Kareem Hunt a few weeks ago wasn't on an NFL roster. Yet today, he's asked to be the number one running back in a close touchdown score game against a division rival. And to me, that says a lot about some guys in that locker room. Xavier Worthy being 21 years old and now being thrust into this spotlight. The number one wide receiver. In the same way last year, Rashee Rice had to do it. He had to be the number one wide receiver because other guys couldn't step up. But it allows those guys to be tested. And honestly, this early in the season, you get to know a lot about those guys. You know, it's one thing to lose somebody to an injury like Rashee Rice's today in week 15. And then you quickly have to figure out how to revamp this offense or redirect it a little bit before the postseason. This gives the Chiefs a lot of time to figure out how to use Worthy as a number one or how to use a running back room with the hot hand until Isaiah Pacheco comes back. Now you have guys like Noah Gray who get to step up for the tight end room, and he's already done that a lot this year. Juju Smith-Schuster can try to recreate what he did 2 years ago. Sky Moore had an opportunity to have a big play in the game today. And how about Andy Reid drawing up a play for him to get open? He was open by at least an arm's length, and he drops the football. It's not to say you can never throw to Sky Moore again, but those will be little moments that we circle and we highlight and go, can you trust a guy in a spot like that? Rashee Rice had gone from hopeful rookie to he's the number one wide receiver, not only on this team, but a number one wide receiver in football. And you could trust him with the game on the line, 3rd and 10, crossing pattern, post route. 8-yard, quick out route. Something like that you can trust him to have the big play. 4th down, game on the line. I'm drawing up a play for somebody. Who am I going to? It was Rice and Kelsey. Now you have to figure out who you can trust. I loved the fact, absolutely loved it, whether he was supposed to be option number 1 or he was option number 2. Worthy getting the ball with the game on the line to ice it. I love that. Even though it was an easy catch for him, it's still getting open and catching the football. Not everybody is able to do that in a high-pressured moment, and we're going to find out a lot about this team and a lot about some of these guys. Carson Steele, he fumbled, right? He fumbled with the Chiefs in the red zone. And when you play for a team like the Chiefs, yeah, a lot of people are watching you. A lot of people are expecting a lot of you. And when you have a turnover, we've even seen with Patrick Mahomes, we had some callers that were upset about the way he's looked, and he's not been good, and you're worried about him. Like, even Patrick Mahomes can get criticism, but he's going to work through it. Guys like Carson Steele, who don't have the same legacy as Patrick Mahomes, there's nowhere to hide. You have to come up big the next time around. You have to be the guy to go out there and make the big play. Pick up the 2 or 3 yards on 4th and short. And I have no doubt in my mind that Carson Steele can bounce back from that. And when Kareem Hunt has something go wrong when he's out there, he makes a mistake, you put him back out there. Andy Reid might be the best in football at that, at getting guys back out there and giving them another opportunity to right or wrong. And it's easier for a quarterback because you're not benching him. Andy Reid would never bench Patrick Mahomes, and I don't even know why that would go out over the air. That'll never be a thing. But there's other guys on the team that might go to the bench. Today, Carson Steele fumbles, and Kareem Hunt got hot, and they stuck with Kareem Hunt. It's not to say it'll be the same exact thing against the Saints next Monday night. You have to change around those things a little bit. But this team is very tight-knit. They know how to win. They know how to deal with adversity. And for those still listening late into the night, we know this team's going to be dealing with a tougher stretch now without some key guys. But it allows them that opportunity to step up and have big-time performances. Worthy did that today. Kelsey did that today. Maybe next week it's Noah Gray. Maybe it's somebody like Jared Wiley who gets, out on the field in a big-time moment in the red zone. Maybe it's somebody like Justin Watson. You never know until that moment actually happens. And for where this team is at, it sounds odd to say, and this sounds very morbid, but if you are going to have an injury like this and have multiple injuries like this, when it's only been a few weeks into the season, it allows these guys to get comfortable with new roles rather than this happening at the very end of the season and you quickly have to pivot to a different game plan in the postseason. They have time for these guys to get comfortable with their new roles and shine in them. We'll take our final break of the show. When we come back, we'll wrap it up on the Red and Gold Postgame Show on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Third down was the magic of Mahomes, brought to you by Westlake Ace Hardware. Westlake Commercial, a division of Westlake Ace Hardware, is your local business-to-business supply partner. Our commercial team, dedicated business-to-business website, credit terms, and convenience store locations make it easy. Visit your local Westlake Ace Hardware store or www.westlakehardware.com/commercial today. The Chiefs are 4-0. They won 17-10 over the Los Angeles Chargers earlier this afternoon. At least that bled into the evening. They do lose Rashee Rice for an extended period of time, likely for the entire season once there's more testing done tomorrow. But from Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter, James Palmer, as you heard in our show, it's feared to be a torn ACL. So going into the next game against the New Orleans Saints, which will be on Monday Night Football, and we'll have you covered right after the game on the Red and Gold Postgame Show, the Chiefs are going to have to go into that game with a rookie, a 21-year-old rookie, as their number one wide receiver, though so far in his NFL career, he's done enough. He's earned a spot like this to be thrust into the spotlight. And Patrick Mahomes, once again, thrust into the spotlight, dealing with this adversity. Now you're back in prime time and taking on a Saints team that can put up points. Maybe not as consistently as you would hope for if you're a Saints fan, but they've already got 2 games this year in which they've put up over 40 points. But back-to-back losses to the Eagles and the Falcons, and they'll come into Arrowhead on the heels of those back-to-back losses. The Chiefs, a 5-point favorite, the total set at 42.5. Well, that's going to do it for another edition of the Red and Gold Postgame Show on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. That's been Dylan Michaels. A big thank you to Kyle Collier. A big thank you to Matt Derrick. If you missed any of the show, you can always check it out on the podcast page. But until next Monday after the game against the New Orleans Saints, you take it easy, Kansas City.